What's up guys, it's La Muerte Blanca back with another Virtual on Armored Core 6 build. This time we are doing the final playable character of the Virtual on roster with Bal-Bas-Bow. Now, Bal-Bas-Bow was average when it came to attack, decent mobility for the most part. I'm really happy and I'm really surprised that this build actually turned out pretty good in both practicality and as far as replicating our build. So as always guys, if you want to try this one out for yourself, the code can be found in the description below. Like I said before, this is the last one. So at this point, we have done every single virtual on playable character. Check them all out. Codes are all in the descriptions for the respective videos. Again, guys, thank you to all of those that are checking these out and enjoying them as much as I am. For those of you that don't remember, Bal-Bas-Bow had three main weapons. He had an F-mine, which was little floaty mines that would come down and explode on the opponent. Great for doing various AoE setups. He had a hand bit where the guns or turrets of his actual arms would fly off and start doing damage from the air. And he had a ring laser where Bal-Bas-Bow would actually shoot out a series of rings as you'd expect from a ring laser. One final weapon that isn't officially part of the kit, but kind of like a super, if you will, would use both of their arms to detach and then they would shoot lasers from the sky. So that was a very key component to the build that we have here. Speaking of, as we go into our build, it was a little difficult trying to replicate a couple of the weapons, as we'll see in a second, but we want to start with the right arm unit as we go into the pulse gun GUQ1. Now this is going to be our ring laser because the orbs from the pulse gun is the closest thing that we could find to the rings. Now we went with the GQ1 instead of the GUA2. I know this one does more damage, but I like the Q1 because it has a higher fire rate and the cooldown for it is a lot faster, meaning that we are able to keep pressure on the opponent with a constant stream of that pulse as opposed to the GUA2. Now the pulse gun in its own right is very specific. It's great against pulse shields and things of that nature. Not a great gun to be throwing on your kit, but again, we had to replicate the ring laser as closely as we could, and the pulse gun seemed to be our best option. Then we go into the explosive thrower, the Taiyang Shao. Now this is going to be our F-mine. The F-mine, I would probably say across most of these builds, one of the hardest weapons to try to replicate because there wasn't anything specific that we could do in order to get the floating mine trajectory that you'd expect from Virtual on. So we went the explosive thrower because it has an AoE-like component similar to the F-mine, does a fair amount of damage, and honestly felt like it was the closest thing that we could get. And we had to use a hand weapon for this specific weapon because of our shoulder unit weapons, which were the closest things that we could get to Bal-Bas-Bow's other weapons. So the laser drone, the 700 LD, this is going to replicate that super that I mentioned before, where the hands would come off and start firing lasers from the sky. Laser drone is going to be the closest representation of that as possible. So this is what we went with because as you can see here, you have the two lasers doing a ton of damage on the enemy, similar to what you'd expect from the lasers from Bal-Bas-Bow. And then the hand bit that we mentioned before, how they fly off his hands and start raining death from the sky. The Huxley bullet orbit is going to be the closest thing from that. Again, flying up in the sky, raining death from above, exactly as you'd expect from a Bal-Bas-Bow. So our shoulder units had to be what they were, which is why we had to choose the pulse gun and the explosive thrower for our hand weapons. Going into the frame, as with all of our builds, we are trying to replicate the body and the look and the feel as well as close as possible when it comes to this build. So we went with the wrecker head. We have the nice flat tall looking head that we expect from a Bal-Bas-Bow. The Firmeza body, nice thin torso, adds a little bit of mobility and speed to what we're looking for. Again, these arms that I have no idea how to pronounce, so we're just going to call them the 46Es because they got the little wings that you'd expect from this particular build and body frame. And then the legs were interesting because those of you that know, Bal-Bas-Bow is the little floaty orb guy. I had no idea how to replicate this, but when we went into the legs, I was kind of going through all the options. I was like, no way. The wheelchair tank treads look exactly like Bal-Bas-Bow. So this is what we went with the Fortaleza. Really hope I said that right. So this is the perfect fit for what we're looking for in terms of the legs for this build. When it comes to the inner workings, of course, we're not going to have a booster because we have tank treads. We went with the Talbot FCS because the way we're going to play this build is going to be mostly close range, because this is going to be a rushdown type build. But of course, if they're running away, we want to be able to target them if we're at medium range as well. And then we went with the VP20C. Again, arquebuss have to have that iconic blue flame as we're boosting around. And then the 20C seemed like the most balanced, best option for what we're looking for in terms of energy capacity, as well as keeping ourselves light enough to be boosting around. As far as the strategy for our armor core Bal-Bas-Bow is concerned, this is a rushdown build through and through. Now, the pulse gun you're going to be using consistently in order to keep the pressure on your enemy. Of course, you're going to be using the laser drones as often as you can, as well as the Huxley when you get in there. The explosive thrower surprisingly does a ton of damage and decent impact. So again, we're trying to get as close as possible so we can use that explosive thrower, keep the pressure on our opponent, and basically outgun them, because with the tank treads we have a little bit more AP than most builds that you would find that are either bipedal or what have you. So this is a rushdown build through and through, get in their face, throw the explosives at them, constant onslaught of pressure, which will ultimately end up winning you the match. And that's Bal-Bas-Bow. The code can be found in the description if you want to try it out for yourself. All of the codes for all of these builds are in their descriptions for their respective videos. I have an entire playlist. Check the links in the description. Have some fun with it. Let me know what you guys think. If you are enjoying these videos at all or want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. I always want feedback for how these are going. So I've gotten some great stuff so far. So anybody new out there wants to try these builds, tell me what they think. I very much appreciate it. So again, guys, thank you so much for checking these out. As always, I'm going to go ahead and show off some of this PvP gameplay. I'm La Muerte Blanca, and I'll catch you guys next time.